Hi, I'm Christy and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. So last month I ended up having a super long end of the month wrap up, and so this month I decided to do like a mid-month wrap up. So today when I'm starting to film this, it is July 10th, and we're about to go away for the week for a little like camping getaway trip, which we do a lot in the summer here in Alaska. So I wanted to wrap up the books I've read so far in the month. So first up, I read The Gunslinger by Lorraine Heath. This is a historical romance Western novella. So in this novella, the hero is a gunslinger, or like a gun for hire. So when he shows up in town, everybody's wondering who he is hired to take care of. So when he first gets there, he's like in the saloon and a boy runs up to him and is like, hey, I need your help. Like, my sister is in trouble and we really need your help. So at first the hero's like, I'm already on a job, kid. Like, I have things going on. So he ends up leaving the saloon and the boy follows him. And when they get outside, they see the boy's sister being assaulted by a few men. So the hero jumps in, he ends up doing, his gunslinging thing and ends up rescuing the heroine, who we find out is the little boy's sister. So during the gunfight, the hero actually got injured as well. And so the heroine and her brother end up taking him back to their home, where they end up, caring for him and nursing him back to health. And so then once the hero heals up, he realizes that the heroine is actually the person he was hired to take care of and get rid of. But like, since he's already been there in their house, he's already started to take a liking to both the heroine and her brother. So he decides he's going to stay on and protect them from the people who originally hired him to get rid of her. Definitely an engaging story, had some twists along the way, some longing, definitely some swoony quotes in here, and just a really sweet epilogue. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Next up, I read Tease by Melanie Harlow. This is the 8th book in her Cloverleaf Farm series. I read an arc of this one, but by the time this wrap-up comes out, the book will already be available. So I originally read the Cloverleaf Farms series, like the original series, like 3 or 4 years ago, and I have been really loving the second generation stories that we've been getting lately. So this one is a fake fiance romance between best friends. So in this one, the heroine is 28 and kind of feels like her life is still getting started. She just recently moved back in with her parents, and she's still trying to get her vegetarian catering company and blog like up and running. So at the beginning of the story, she had just catered her first wedding event, and then she gets like a really scathing 1-star review from the bride. She's already feeling kind of down in the dumps and ends up going to her 10-year high school reunion that same night, or like the next night, and she runs into the high school mean girls there, who are still mean girls and kind of give her a hard time. And so she ends up panicking and telling them, like, I'm actually engaged to like my billionaire best friend. So then we meet the hero. He's actually in town for the summer. They met like back in middle school, and they were friends through high school, and they both kind of bonded over being like socially awkward, into math and science and like sci-fi films. So the hero eventually went on to MIT, and then he became like a billionaire. No, I don't usually enjoy billionaire romances, but what I really appreciated with this one is that the hero is not that like typical cocky, confident billionaire type hero. He actually is socially awkward. He doesn't like talking on the phone. He doesn't like big gatherings with like a large amount of people around, and so I liked that representation of him. He ends up going along with the heroine's plan at the high school reunion, and then the next day when they wake up, like all of their friends and family and the small town where they live, like everybody's gotten wind of their engagement, and so they decide they're gonna have to play along with it. So the heroine, she actually wants to come clean about it right away, but the hero is like, hey, let's just like appease our families. I'm only here for the summer, like let's just lean into it and see what happens. I loved seeing these two together. They both kind of pined for one another over the years, but never gave in because they didn't want to, ruin their friendship. I loved how the hero was very shy and reserved in public and very dominant and controlling in the bedroom. They also get to play out like a lot of their fantasies that they've built up about one another throughout the years. So yeah, I definitely love this one. This is one of my favorites from the new generation that we've been getting, and I just love seeing all of the Cloverleaf Farms families again. So I gave this one 5 stars. So next up, one of the weekends, I ended up binging the Devil series by Elizabeth O'Rourke. This is her contemporary romance series. It's on Kindle Unlimited. They're like hate to love, close proximity romances, and I have a whole series review already on my channel, which I'll link in the description. So you can check that video out for all of my thoughts and like a quick review on the 3 books in the series there. So A Deal with the Devil, I gave it 5 stars. The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, I gave 4 stars. And The Devil You Know, I gave 3 stars. Next up, I read Surrender to Sin by Nicola Davidson, and this is a novella, which is the first book in her Fallen series. So all the books in this series center around the Fallen Club, which the hero of this book co-owns. And so the Fallen Club is like a scandalous BDSM-style pleasure club in London. So in this, the heroine is a widow, and her father is actually forcing her to remarry. Like, he even tells her, this is going to be your wedding date, like I'm marrying you off to this like old dude. So the heroine definitely doesn't want that. So she ends up going to the Fallen Club and searching out Sin, which is the hero. His real name's like Sebastian, but he goes by Sin. So she's tired of all the men in her life controlling her and making her choices for her. So she wants to go to the club and have the hero like partially ruin her because she's hoping that her father and her groom to be, will call off the wedding. So along the way, while exploring one another and, giving into their fantasies, the hero and heroine end up falling for one another. This was a super quick, steamy read that delivered exactly what I wanted at the right time. I'll definitely continue on in this series. And for the first book, I gave it 3.5/4 stars. Next up, I read The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. This is her newest book that just came out. I originally read The Winter People by this author earlier this spring and really enjoyed that. And so I was excited for her next book. So from the books I've read from her, she definitely leans into that suspenseful kind of paranormal vibe with her mystery thrillers. So this one I really enjoyed. I really liked the author's storytelling. This kind of had like Frankenstein vibes. It really just pulled me in right away. The story jumps from current day, which is like 2019, to the past in 1878. And this was a time where I really loved like both things happening in both timelines. In the 2019 storyline, we're following Lizzie, and she's the host of a podcast called Monsters Among Us. And so she's been traveling to like different states where young girls have gone missing, and it's like always on a full moon night that they go missing. And it's like in towns that have like monsters or, folklore and legends of monsters that live there. So in the 1978 chapters, we're following two grandchildren who are being raised by their grandmother in Vermont. So their grandmother is a psychiatrist, and she runs like this renowned treatment center. One day their grand ends up introducing them to another little girl and says, you need to take her in. She's your new sister, teach her all the things. And so they end up letting her join in on their circle. They have like a monster club. So the premise of this book was very reminiscent of like other books I've read before, but I still did feel like the storytelling was kind of new and interesting. So while some of the storylines and twists were a bit predictable and the ending was definitely more anticlimactic, I still had a good time with this one and was along for the ride. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Next up, I read Parks and Provocation by Juliet Cross. I love this one. It's a small town contemporary romance, and it's between a firefighter hero and the heroine who has recently moved back to their small town in Tennessee. So the beginning of the story kicks off with the heroine locking her keys and like her running car in a parking lot, and she calls somebody, and the hero shows up, and he is a firefighter, and he actually is her old like high school crush turned nemesis. So the hero and heroine definitely have some animosity and history from their past, but it's definitely that classic like teen peer pressure, miscommunication that was going on back in the day. And the hero definitely falls for the heroine first, and he believes she is the one who like got away, and so he's determined to not let her get away at this time. And the heroine runs a dating review podcast with her best friend where she goes on like first dates, and then her and the date come back like a few days after the fact, and then they'll chat about like the good, the bad, the ugly of how the date went. So with her first date with the hero, they come on the show and chat about it. And then while on air, he ends up peer pressuring her and asking her out on a second date, even though she already told him, like, I don't do second dates. I really love this one. It's super sweet and swoony. The hero also has dyslexia, so I liked that representation of his character. And I liked seeing him fall for the heroine at first, and him kind of trying to convince her, to give in to their relationship and their feelings. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Next, I ended up reading Persuasion by Jane Austen. So the Rake Appreciation Society, the book club put together by Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life and Jen from the Book Refuge, they decided to do a bonus book club read this month and chose Persuasion. So they're going to be having like a live show on their channel with Tiff from Tiff Talks Pages and Jessin from Jessin Reads Romance. They're going to be doing like a live discussion of the book club read right before the new movie on Netflix comes out. This was my first time reading this Jane Austen book, and I actually ended up not really liking it. I gave it 3 stars. So this one I was really hoping to love. It's like supposedly like, the epitome or like the very first second chance romance. So I was expecting a lot. I have really enjoyed some of Austen's other books and like other classics I've reread multiple times in the past. And this one just didn't do it for me. I really had a hard time with Anne's character, just that kind of letting everybody persuade her into things, which I get, it's like the title of the book, but like it was just kind of annoying seeing all these people kind of just make decisions for her or influence her so much. Her family like take advantage of her, and she just came off as kind of a shy heroine, and I just wanted her to stand up for herself, stand up to her family, like admit you like this guy, like just go for it, which I get for the time, like it's accurate. I was just expecting more and wanting more. I think the book would have really benefited from like some flashbacks of her and Wentworth in the past, of like whatever tore them apart, or maybe their connection in the past. I feel like we never really got that, and even in like the present day of the story, like I felt like her and Wentworth weren't around each other enough for me to believe it. it. Like, they didn't really have a lot of interactions or moments for me to be rooting for them. I do think this was strong in like the social commentary that's very classic of Austen to do in her books. And I mean, she can definitely write a good swoony love letter. Like, that was great, which I did right after reading it. Watched the like 1995 adaptation, which is pretty faithful to the book. I didn't really enjoy it because it gave me the same vibes that the book was giving. Like, I just wanted more for Anne. All that said, Austen's books have definitely stood the test of time. They're inspirations today for multiple books and movies. So I get it. I get why the story is popular. Just wasn't my personal favorite. And I am still excited for the new Netflix adaptation that comes out mid-July. So I will be watching that. But it did have me craving a good second chance romance. And I think like modern day historicals definitely deliver on that, which again, The Magic by Lisa Kleypas is an all-time favorite if you're in the mood for a great angsty second chance romance. Next up, I picked up Flirting with Fire by Kate Meador. This is the first book in her Hot in Chicago series. So this series centers around the Dempsey family, which is a group of foster siblings who were taken in and raised by their foster father, who was a firefighter, and all of the siblings have followed in his steps, and they're all firefighters now as well. So this first book kicks off with the hero and his siblings. They all work at the same fire station as well. They end up getting into some trouble because they fight somebody in a bar. So after this creates some bad press, the mayor decides that he wants to clean up the firehouse image, starting with the hero. The heroine is the mayor's assistant press secretary, and she's tasked with cleaning up the hero's image. So there was definitely some hot and fun moments in this one. I loved the found family aspect of the entire family, but I just didn't end up getting pulled into the story or this couple, and there was just nothing really exceptional or memorable to me. This book was also published in 2015, and it definitely had some super cringy and just awkward writing moments that didn't age well. And this does have content warning in it for a lot of hate speech, like racial, gender, and sexual orientation. So I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. I ended up continuing on and trying the second book in the series, which is Playing with Fire. I had heard that this one was a little better, so I went into it. And in this one, the heroine is one of the sisters in the Dempsey like foster family situation. So she works in a very male-dominated firefighter world, and this is her romance with the hero, who is the mayor that she's kind of had like a very hateful relationship with in the past. In this one, the heroine at the beginning of the story ends up saving the hero during a fire, but at the very end of it, he ends up carrying her out. So he comes off looking like the hero. And so after his heroic saving moment goes viral and he gets a lot of good press for it, his PR team decides, you know, hey, you should maybe like date her or fake date her. So for the publicity stunt, they end up fake dating to kind of help with his mayoral campaign. So this one, while it was a little better than the first book in the series, I kind of had the same problems with it, the same kind of hate speech being used. Again, this one was published also in 2015, so it definitely felt dated and cringy, and I just wasn't pulled into the characters or the story as much as I hoped to. But I did like this one a little better, so I gave it 3 stars, but I don't plan on continuing on with the series. Next up, I read Weight of Regret by K.K. Allen, and this was my first time at picking up a book from this author. So I got this recommendation from Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl. This is a contemporary romance, very angsty, and has like a second chance vibe to it. This book kicks off with the heroine. She lives on an island off of the Pacific Northwest and has been working at a camp there for the past 3 years as kind of like the activities director and like camp counselor. And she has been crushing on the hero, who is the owner of the camp, since her first day of work. The prologue starts off with the heroine kind of giving up on waiting for the hero and decides like maybe I should take another job and just move on with my life. So the hero ends up getting wind of this and comes to her like during a storm, of course, comes to her room and is like, hey, I heard this rumor that you're like trying to get another job, like what's up with that? So while confronting her about it, they end up kissing, and then he ends up pushing her away because he knows she'll do better in Seattle at her dream job. So he kind of gives her a ultimatum and is like, either quit and go take this dream job or I will fire you. So we cut to 1 year later and the heroine is working at the marketing firm in Seattle. She's also having like a little side affair with her boss there. She ends up getting hired for the grand reopening of the hero's camp, which unbeknownst to the hero, his sister kind of hooked up this hiring of the heroine. Right before the heroine ends up leaving for the trip, her boss is like, hey, while you're gone for these 2 weeks, like you need to think about our relationship. Like I want this to become something, like I want you to be my girlfriend, like let's make this official, but like while you're on this trip, like you can think about it and come back with an answer. So the heroine returns to the camp and she is there like solely to focus on her job, but the hero is like not ready to let her get away again. He definitely regrets pushing her away in the past and is determined to make her stay. So this one has that great close proximity because they're at the camp together, working together and staying with one another. It also has age gap. The heroine is 26 and the hero is 36, and the hero is definitely gives off that tortured, lonely really hero vibes. You know, he thinks everybody is going to leave him. Everybody does leave him. So this book was definitely filled with steamy times and some great, like really quotable moments. I liked the angst of them. You know, are they going to get together? Are they not? And then her boss slash the guy she's having an affair with, like showing up at the camp, like definitely the drama of all of that I really enjoyed. I did think the story dragged on a little bit too long towards the end, because once they were together, there was like nothing really keeping them apart anymore. And I wasn't as much into the hero's kind of backstory and his family stuff going on in the background. But yeah, so I definitely read more from this author, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. Next, I read an arc of The Close-Up by Kennedy Ryan, and this comes out on August 16th. So this is a crossover novella that collides characters from her Hoop series as well as her Hollywood Renaissance series, which we first met the heroine in Real, because she is like the roommate of the heroine of that book and also the makeup artist. This story kicks off with the heroine being 18 and her brother is a like high school basketball star. And her brother's having all of his teammates over at their house, and he tells the heroine to stay away from this certain guy because he is her brother's like competition and rival, even though they're teammates. So the hero and heroine, this is the first time that they meet, and they have like this instant connection, which Kennedy has a great way of making like one night, one encounter feel like a lifetime between these couple, and like how they're very meant to be. And the level of connection and chemistry and like potential for more that we get from this first one passionate night that they end up sharing, you know, it just felt so believable and real. But of course, when the heroine's brother finds out, it leads to some complications, and the hero and heroine end up not seeing each other again for 12 years. We cut to 12 years later, and the heroine has her dream job now. She does makeup and hair on like movies and film and for photo shoots. And she's at a photo shoot with Lotus, one of the heroines from the Hoops series, when she ends up meeting the hero again. So the hero went on and became a professional basketball player. He plays with August, the hero from Long Shot in the Hoops series, which if you've read the Hoops series, you get to see all of the couples again and catch up with them, which was a lot of fun. All of the couples are friends with the hero, and the couples from the Hoops series, they're all going away on this Mediterranean like yacht 2-week vacation to celebrate one of their birthdays, and they invite the hero along. So the hero ends up convincing them to let him invite the heroine as his +1. So I loved the chemistry and angst between the couple. They decide to give in to all of their feelings for the 2 weeks that they're together on the yacht. Heroine definitely knows what she wants and is not afraid to tell the hero, and he is that like perfect obsessed with his partner type of hero. I just loved seeing how much he takes care of the heroine like in all aspects of her life. So there's definitely that angst hanging over them of like her brother, even all these years later, still really hates the hero because of some of the choices that the brother made in the past. He ended up ending his own shot at a career and like any future possibility that he had in the sport, and he kind of looks at the hero getting everything that, you know, he didn't get in life. So yeah, this one was great. If you love the Hoop series, you get to see cameos from all of the couples in this, and yeah, this was just a really great time. I always love Kennedy's writing, and I ended up giving this 5 stars. So I read an arc of The Duke's Accidental Bride by Eva Devon. This comes out on August 1st. So this is a historical romance novella. I've read a few from this author in the past. On this one, the hero is a duke, and he's actually a matchmaker as well, which was a fun spin. And the heroine, they actually grew up together. He was her brother's best friend. The story starts off with the heroine climbing through the hero's window. She's kind of pissed off at him because he recently matchmaked her sister with like a vicar, and even though they're like super happy and it's a love match, now the heroine is pissed because now it forces her hand, and now she has to marry for fortune and title that her sister did not get. She sets out to let the hero have all of her wrath, and then he ends up, you know, saying, you know, well, I'll help you find a husband that's like the right and suitable one for you. So shortly after agreeing to help her, he realizes he's going to have a bit of a problem with this because the heroine is definitely that not like other ladies vibe. She shows up in breeches, she climbs through his window, she wants freedom from her future husband, like to be able to make her own choices. And then along the way, the hero actually realizes he starts to have feelings for her, and so the whole time he's kind of fighting it because he's like, she is my best friend's little sister, like I can't be having feelings for her. And because of some things in the hero's past with his family, he has also decided that he will never love, marry, or have children of his own. So while trying to help her get a husband, he also gives in to her like kissing lessons that she wants. And they end up getting caught though when they're kissing, and it ends up turning into a marriage of convenience situation. So I thought this was an okay read. With this author's books, I always get really pulled in by the premise. Like they always sound really good, but then the actual writing always just comes off kind of bland. There's a lot of like inner monologue going on and inner thoughts, and then we're not really shown things, we're just kind of told, and the dialogue just came off a little dry. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Next up, I read The Outlaw and the Lady by Lorraine Heath. I read this for the cover-to-cover book club pick for July, which is a book club ran by Tori from Novel Life and Sam from Sam Reads a Little. So I was really excited to get to this one. It's the first book in Lorraine Heath's Daughters of Fortune series, which I think I've mentioned multiple times before. I've been reading through Lorraine Heath's backlist for like 2+ years now, and so this was a series that I still needed to read. So this series is a spinoff from Lorraine's Rogues in Texas series. So I do think if you've read that series, you're going to come into this one liking it already a little bit more, because the heroine of this is one of the children of the couples in that series. This series is one of Lorraine's Western historical romance series, so it definitely has that kind of slower, quieter vibe to it, which I actually really enjoy. And so the hero in this one, he is an outlaw, and at the beginning of the story, he is robbing a bank when the heroine is on one of her nightly walks, and the hero spots her and is like, you know, holy crap, she just witnessed us committing this crime, because he's there with his brothers. And so he panics and ends up kidnapping her. So later into the night, after he's already kidnapped her, he ends up realizing she didn't really witness anything because she's actually a blind heroine. So I ended up really liking this one. The hero ends up bringing the heroine along with him and with his family. He ends up taking her to like his house where his brothers and sister live. And the heroine is just a very smart and capable heroine. She actually became blind when she was 12 years old due to like a high fever and illness. And I just really liked seeing her kind of bond with his family while they're staying together. And her parents and their friends are the couples from the Rogues in Texas series, which I really enjoyed. So it was fun seeing all of them make appearances. And of course, in classic Lorraine Heath fashion, there's definitely some twists and turns along the way and a lot of angst. So yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 stars, which I totally forgot to hold up the book the entire time I was talking about it. So this is The Outlaw and the Lady. There's the cover and there is the step back. So yeah, totally forgot, but there's that one. Next up, I read To Marry an Heiress by Lorraine Heath. This is the second book in the Daughters of Fortune series. So this is the cover of that one. And then we get this gorgeous like wedding shot on the back. In this book, the heroine is an American heiress, and her father are in London. So the hero in this one, he's actually an earl, and he is a widower, and he is in need of money for his estate. So he ends up meeting with the heroine's father at the beginning of the story, and they make like a betrothal arrangement between him and the heroine. But one of her father's requirements is that the hero never tell her that they made this agreement. So instead, her father wants the hero to woo and show that he's like courting or, you know, interested in the heroine. But upon the couple's first meeting at a ball, she kind of figures out what he's up to and is like, hey, like, just give it to me straight. Like, what's going on? What did my father promise you? And so he ends up telling her, and they end up making an arrangement instead, because she's like, you know what? Yeah, I do want to get married. I'm 26. Like, what do you have to offer? Here's what I want, you know, so they kind of go from there. So their marriage of convenience situation, they end up getting married very quickly, but they're actually starting to fall for one another along the way, and they're getting along. They have like their passionate wedding night together, and then the next day kind of everything unravels from there. So it's definitely got some twists and turns, because Lorraine Heath loves to provide that angst for us. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one and gave it 4 stars. Okay, so before I wrap up this July mid-month wrap-up video, I have 7 more books to add to it. It is raining right now, so hopefully that's not too loud, but I'm in my car, and this is the only place I can film this right now. All right, so I ended up reading Hard Hitter, which is the second book in Serena Bowen's Brooklyn Bruiser series. This is a hockey romance series, and I really have been enjoying this one. I like the amount of hockey action we get, as well as the romance with the couples. So this book I ended up giving 5 stars, and it's my favorite in the series so far. This one, the heroine is the team's like massage therapist and yoga instructor, and she recently got out of like a long-term toxic kind of abusive relationship. When the story starts up, she's still dealing with her abusive ex, and so she's like definitely not in a place to have a relationship right now. The hero is the captain of the hockey team as well as the enforcer, so like he gets into a lot of the fights and things like that for the hockey team. And the hero, he's now 32, and so his body is definitely starting to feel the burn. Before, he's kind of always concealed his pains and things like that from the game, like from the trainers and the coaches. Now he's having some chronic hip pain. They tell him he needs to start going to have regular sessions with the massage therapist, which is the heroine. So the hero's always been kind of broody, not really a grump, but kind of just keeps to himself. He doesn't even invite like the team over to his house or anything, and he also doesn't like physical touch, like touching on him. So that's why he's been avoiding massage sessions. And the heroine's helping him like with the the massages and stuff to recover for the games. They start to build a kind of friendship. And then one day the hero rushes out of the appointment, and he accidentally takes her phone, like her team phone instead of his team phone, and he starts seeing all these texts from her abusive ex, feels like worried for her and rushes over to her place. So it becomes their romance, which I really loved this one. I love that the heroine is the one who's against the relationship in the beginning, trying not to get involved with anybody just because of her previous like ex. And then I loved seeing the hero try to woo and win her. He even like asks the rest of the teammates for help, like what's your best way to, you know, like romance your partner, which was super cute and fun. There is a little bit of something from the hero's past that gets brought up towards the end of the book and leads the heroine to kind of jump to a conclusion about him that, you know, kind of irritated me a bit, but it's just because I knew they were so perfect together, and it's like, come on, like just get together. I'd give this one 5 stars. So next I finished Pipe Dreams, which is the 3rd book in the Brooklyn Bruisers series. And this one I gave 4 stars. So this one is a second chance romance between like the hockey playing single father and then the woman that he never stopped loving over the years. This one is told with flashback as well as like present day. In present day, we know the heroine, she works for the team owner and she's been avoiding like the team. She, you know, comes off that like she hates hockey and just kind of avoids everything. And then we find out that that's because she had a relationship with one of the players in the past and got heartbroken and just kind of burned from that. But at the beginning of the story, when the other assistant of the owner ends up going on medical leave, the heroine has to get involved with the team and is there like every day, and then comes, you know, face to face with her ex. So then in the past flashbacks, we get to see when the hero and heroine first met. They both kind of started working for the team at the same time. The hero was the new captain at the time, and the heroine started working for her father, who used to manage the team. So they were friends for like 8 years, and then when he ended up splitting up from his wife at the time, the hero and heroine got together like when he was going through his divorce, and so like everything was perfect between them. They were having a great time for like a year and a half of their relationship when he like suddenly dumped her and left her like heartbroken. These two, they never fell out of love, like some complications from his past with his family, like he ended up moving in with his ex-wife and their young preteen daughter at the time. So some complications from his family is what led these two to separate. So I love A Second Chance, and I love seeing those flashbacks of like their first time that they were in love and kind of what broke them apart. And since neither of them were really the reason of why they broke up in the past, like there was really no issue between them. Like the love was never lost between these two. It was just kind of buried under some hurt. So they had to just kind of unwrap those layers. And so now that the hero and heroine are working together all the time at the office now, they start, you know, all those old feelings come back. And then when he finds out that she's actually trying to have a baby, and he accidentally like finds her fertility drugs. And so that kind of brings them back together. Yeah, I really loved the family aspect of this one and just really loved this second chance romance. And so yeah, I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read Brooklyn Air, which is the 4th book in the Brooklyn Bruisers series. One is the romance of the hero. He's the owner of the team, and the heroine is one of his, like the team's assistants. So these two have been friends for years. They've had like both of them been mutually pining for one another. And when she ends up getting injured at work, he ends up like having her move in with him for a bit, and they just kind of become closer and both realize they have feelings for one another. So this one does have like a lot of overlap with the previous book in the series, which was kind of boring to me just because I had just come off of that book. This one, they're obviously complicated because they work together, or she works for him. So there's that whole like power imbalance with their relationship. These two, yeah, like they've been throughout the entire series, like everybody around them knows that they should be together, and it's like just those two needing to admit that their feelings for one another. This one I ended up giving 3 stars. So next I ended up binging the Sinner series by Michelle Hurd. So I had first heard about this series and this author back during the Mafia Romance Readathon in May. I know that Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl and Tori from Novel Life had both read it. So all the books in this series are standalones, but they exist in the same like organized crime world. All the heroes are like the heads of prominent mafia families, and they kind of have like a loose partnership, so to speak, or like they all meet every few months to like keep the peace between them. So we have like the Greek, Italian, Irish, Turkish, and I believe the Bratva are all like the 5 heroes in this series. First book, the hero was actually the head of the Greek mafia, but it takes place in Canada. I had actually heard from a few friends ahead of time to like not give up after this book, to give this series a chance, because like not a lot of people love the first book, but I actually ended up loving it. Like it was my favorite in the series. So the hero in this is super alpha hero, which, you know, I love. When the heroine ends up meeting her new stepfather, her mother just married like the retired godfather of the Greek mafia, and his son, the hero, is now the head of the mafia. So like the first time they end up meeting, they're meeting because the families are like coming together for a dinner. She meets the hero. He shows up with like blood on his shirt and like starts threatening her right away, and so she's like, who is this guy? And like, I hate him already. And then when she learns he's expecting her to attend all these social events now with the family to show like this united front, and like every Sunday she has to come to a family lunch and like all of these things, and that she's gonna have guards with her all the time, like she's just like so pissed off with the hero. Heroine's definitely like anti-mafia, doesn't want to be like a mafia princess, you know, she doesn't want any of this. And the hero is like, oh, like you're gonna be a mafia princess, like I'm gonna set you up and marry you off to somebody. This one definitely had a lot going on, especially towards the end of the book, but I just thought it was a lot of fun. The hero, he's definitely like annoyed with himself, with how possessive and protective and obsessive he becomes over the heroine. And their chemistry was just like super explosive right away. They don't get along, but like they definitely want to like rip each other's clothes off. So it was like this fun energy. And we get like a lot of hate banging, which I had a fun time with. In this book, which all the books in the series are all age gap, and this one, like she's 21 and he's 36. Yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So the next book in the series is Owned by a Sinner, and it's book 2. And in this one, the hero is the head of the Irish Mafia, and it takes place in Chicago. So this book, it starts off with like a prologue, so like 25 years in the past, with the heroine's father and mother like finding out that they're pregnant with her after a one-night stand, and her father works for the Irish Mafia, and he's like, you know, I don't want a baby or a child around this kind of environment, so like go raise her like away from this. I'll be a part of her life, but like I never want her to know what I do, or for my bosses slash the, you know, Irish Mafia to know I even have this daughter. So then we cut 2 years later, and the heroine is 24, and she just got like her first big job, and she's super excited to tell her parents that she's going to be working as a receptionist at Byrne Enterprises, which when she tells them, both of her parents are like, oh my god, what? Like, don't work there, you shouldn't work there. But like they're super vague about it, and she can't understand like why they're so not into her first job, which of course later we find out that the hero is the owner of this corporation, and he is the head of the Irish Mafia. So things quickly start to derail with the heroine when she's at her new job, and the boss's stepbrother, who is like the director of the company, he starts harassing her at work, and you know, he actually ends up assaulting her, which the hero then steps in and kind of rescues her. So in this one, the hero has always despised physical contact, but for whatever reason, like the heroine is the one exception to that rule for him. So I did still really like this one. I gave it 4 stars, but I actually think that book 1 was more believable to me with the couple's chemistry. This one had more of like an insta love situation or vibe, and I would have liked more time spent with the hero and heroine before like seeing them fall for each other like so quickly. That said, I really loved the hero. He's really amazing, and I liked how protective and caring he is for the heroine. Yeah, this one is age gap as well, so she's 24, he's 39, and I gave this one 4 stars. And then the third book in the series is Stolen by a Sinner. This one actually just recently came out, I believe in June, and this was actually my least favorite in the series. I ended up giving this one 2 stars. This one has like Cinderella style vibes. The heroine has always worked for the Polish mafia head, and he's like the villain of the story. So in this one, the hero is the head of the Turkish mafia, and he ends up like attacking the Polish mafia guy's like house, and so the heroine ends up getting caught in the crossfire during that. She gets shot, and so the hero ends up grabbing her during that time and taking her back with him to like his house to kind of like interrogate her about everything going on, because the Polish mafia guy like disappeared, so he wants to know everything he can about her former boss. Then after she's like healed up, she starts working for the hero, the Turkish mafia, instead. Just realized with this book that I definitely do not like at all like the very super naive heroines. Like it just really, I don't know, felt kind of cringe to me, like how naive she was to the world, to sex, like to all the things. And so it just felt kind of cringy and weird to me, like all of the moments with her and the hero. Also, the like Cinderella style vibes or like retellings are like my least favorite fairy tale setup, and so this one just really didn't work for me. This one is again an age gap, like the heroine's 22, he's 38. Again, we have that protective, possessive hero, which I liked that part. I liked him, he was fine, but the heroine just being extremely naive and like falling hard for the hero super fast, and their kind of like insta relationship just didn't work for me. And then since I already wasn't enjoying it, like this kind of pointed out all the other issues that it had with the series so far. Like this book is supposed to take place in Seattle, and it's really hard to believe like the things that are happening or going on are like happening in US cities with these like international mafia heads. Like I kind of wish we were in their countries instead of like US setting, because it just felt not believable. Like again, since I was liking the first 2 books in the series, I overlooked that, but with this book, since I wasn't enjoying it, like those kind of problems you start to notice more.
That said, I'll like still read the next book from the author, which I believe comes out in August. And yeah, this one just wasn't for me, but I did enjoy the first 2 books. Next, I read Steel King, which is the first book in the Clifton Forge series by Devney Perry. This is a read along that Jess from Peace Love Books, Tori from Novel Life, and Sam from Sam Reads a Little are putting on. All the books in the series will be read between July and August. So for this, I'm actually going to do like a series vlog review style, so I won't say too much about this one, but I did give it like 3.5/4 stars. This whole series kind of centers around this former MC or like motorcycle club that ended up disbanding like a year ago. So it centers around them. It takes place in Montana. And then there is like an overarching murder mystery suspense kind of happening throughout the series. And so, yeah, I'll have more thoughts on that later.
So those were my thoughts on the first books I've read during July. Let me know in the comments if you read any of these and if we share similar thoughts or if you're planning to pick up any of these books. And of course, my Goodreads is always linked in my description if you want any of my full reviews and full thoughts on any of these books. If you haven't done it yet, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you in my next one.